So if you're into dual sports, unless you've been living under a rock, you'll have seen that both Honda and Kawasaki have recently announced their much awaited 300cc dual sports, the KLX 300 and the CRF 300L. If you were living under a rock, go and check out my videos I've done on them. Now in this video, I'm going to break the bikes down, directly comparing their engine, suspension, looks, because I'm vain like that, don't pretend you're not, specs, and give my opinion on which one I think you should buy. Alright, enough messing around, let's get into it. So first off, I'm going to start with looks. Yes, this is probably the least important category, but it's honestly valid. I mean, I don't want some bike in my garage that looks like it's been beaten with the ugly stick, and I owned a KLR 650. While looks are subjective, I think there's no denying the CRF 300L takes the win here. Sure, the camo KLX 300 looks pretty tough with its blacked out rims and frame, but Kawasaki hasn't done anything to update the looks. This design has been out since 2008, and before that the 90s. I think it's starting to show. First win to Honda. Alright, let's look at the engine and transmission. We already know that unless both engines are as bad as 2020 somehow, they're both going to be as reliable as a hammer. The KLX 300 motor is a re-sleeve KLX 250S that has been around since Adam was a boy, and that engine has legendary reliability. It has a 6cc advantage over the CRF 300L. It's 292cc versus 286. The Honda engine has been taken straight out of the CBR 300, and it should take you around the world without any dramas. Both are running EFI and 6-speed transmissions. Performance-wise, I can't see there being any major differences here. It's a bit concerning that Kawasaki hasn't released any official performance numbers, but until we've ridden them, I think it's safe to say they'll be very similar, or the Honda might have a small advantage. I'm going to score this as a tie. Okay, suspension time. I'm going to call this one pretty much straight away and say that the KLX 300 will have better suspension. Why? The KLX 250S had much better suspension than the CRF 250L, and it appears that while Honda has added travel to the front and rear, it's still budget, basement, non-adjustable suspension that, frankly, it's not going to be up to snuff when you do any serious off-roading. Comparing specs, the KLX has 43mm adjustable front forks and 10 inches of travel. The CRF has the same size forks with 9.8 inches of travel, but it's not adjustable. Looking at the rear shocks, the KLX has 9.1 inches of travel with a P-back reservoir system and adjustable rebound damping. The CRF has 9.4 inches of travel and no adjustability. What also has me concerned is watching the CRF 300L videos that are currently online, the suspension looks soft, like really soft. Here's hoping they put some heavier springs in it for the overseas market, but I'm not hopeful. Pretty big win here for the Kawasaki 2-all. Okay, let's break down the bike's features and specs. Feature-wise, I think the CRF edges out the KLX. The CRF has LED lights, a nicer dash with a gear indicator and fuel gauge, and also switchable ABS. I know some people don't like modern tech on their bike, but these are some nice touches, especially the fuel gauge and LED headlight. I own a KLX 250S, and I would love it to have a brighter LED headlight and a fuel gauge. While the 300L has gone on a pretty decent diet, at 304 pounds, it's still 2 pounds heavier than the KLX 300. Honestly, I doubt anyone's going to notice this difference. For those who are worried about seat height, the KLX is 1 inch taller than the CRF at 35.2 inches. Whereas the old KLX 250S had a sizable ground clearance advantage over the 250L, with the KLX 300 this is unfortunately shrunk. This is most likely due to the now longer rake and trail. The difference here is now only 0.2 of an inch. The KLX has 9.8 and the CRF 9.6, both reasonably low to be honest. Besides that, the bikes are remarkably similar. They both got steel frames, tank sizes are both 2 gallons, and everything else is pretty much the same. There are a couple of things worth mentioning though. The CRF has better foot pegs and a new one-piece frame. I'm not sure how that frame will go in the long run off-road, but my initial thoughts are I'd rather it didn't have one. So the CRF has better features and the KLX has slightly better ground clearance. I'm going to score this 1 to Honda and 0.75 to Kawasaki. Okay, last up is the price. Kawasaki has come straight out and given a price of $5,599 US for the base KLX 300 and $5,799 for the camo version. This is a good price to be honest. I think that's a good price. Honda, we aren't exactly sure, so we're going to have to speculate a little based off the Thailand price and some overseas prices. Some people have commented on my YouTube channel saying that the CRF is 5,400 euros, and based on my Thailand calculations, it'll be roughly 5,500 US dollars. So this is pretty well Thai. So both bikes have their pros and cons. The Kawasaki is honestly dated, but has better suspension. The Honda looks great, and based on the fact that Kawasaki hasn't released any performance numbers, I think the CRF motor might have more potential, and no doubt you'll need to upgrade that suspension. My final score tally is 4.75 to the Honda and 4.5 to the Kawasaki. So for my money, I'm leaning slightly towards the Honda. If the Honda had better suspension, I would recommend it straight away. If you're going to change the springs on your Kawasaki anyway, I'd be leaning towards the Honda again. If Kawasaki had made some more updates to the bike besides just the motor, I'd be recommending the Kawasaki. Honestly, we're just going to have to wait for them both to come out though. Either way, I think both are going to make really solid dual sport bikes with some caveats.